I've detailed a lot of cars, but I'd never seen one of these before.
It's a 1986 Subaru XT Turbo.
And it's been sitting here for over 10 years?
Yeah.
The forest almost swallowed this car.
Yeah, it's been sitting under these trees a long time.
Let's see if there's still a car under all this.
I almost didn't believe it when I first saw the car sitting behind those trees. At first glance, it looked less like a vehicle and more like something the forest had slowly claimed as its own. Spruce needles covered the hood, cones were piled across the windshield, and weeds were growing up through the cracks around the tires. The elderly man standing beside it told me quietly that it had been sitting there for well over a decade in this small town. The car was a 1986 Subaru XT Turbo, and even as someone who works around vehicles every day, I had to admit I'd barely ever seen one in person before. That alone made the job interesting. But what made it special was the man who owned it. His name was Dean, and as he stood there in a faded green sweater, looking at the car, you could tell immediately that this wasn't just an old forgotten machine to him. He started telling stories about the days when he used to drive it through dirt roads and rally tracks. He laughed as he explained how the car loved the dirt, and how it stuck to the road better than some of the newer cars he'd owned later in life. You could see his eyes light up, remembering those years. The problem was, time had not been kind to the car. With piles of lumber and old tires blocking the path, we had to clear away just to get near it. The keys had been locked inside years ago, so after several failed attempts with a coat hanger, we finally managed to pop the door open using a long stick. When the door creaked open, the interior looked like something out of a time capsule. Cobwebs hung across the dash, dust coated every surface, and it was obvious mice had lived inside at some point. Even so, we were all curious if it might somehow still start. We threw a battery in, connected a boost pack, and held our breath. But the engine stayed silent. Still, when the pop-up headlights suddenly lifted up and blinked to life, everyone standing there smiled. Somehow that tiny moment made the car feel alive again. Eventually we towed it out, loaded it onto a trailer, and brought it back to my shop. The next day I began cleaning it, starting by vacuuming what felt like an entire forest worth of spruce needles out of the body seams and engine bay. At one point I even found a weed growing out of the trunk seam, which tells you just how long this car had been sitting outside. But as the pressure washer slowly cut through years of dirt and moss, something incredible started happening. Underneath all that neglect, the shape of the car began to reappear. The strange wedge design, the futuristic interior, the weird steering wheel layout, this car was actually pretty amazing for something built in the 1980s. By the end of the day, it looked dramatically different. And when the new owners came back and saw it, they couldn't believe the transformation. They're hoping to get it running again someday, and honestly, I hope they do. Because some cars are rare, but the stories attached to them are even rarer. Before I go any further, drop the first comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you believe old machines deserve a second chance, make sure you like and share this video. And remember, sometimes God gives people memories through the things they once loved, and bringing those memories back can mean more than we realize.